Drake Voss had never broken a rule before. He was a respected explorer, trained by the Earth Federation, trusted with missions no one else dared to take. But this time, something told him to go deeper. To cross the red line, to open the door. Labeled forbidden, the alien ship had been found under the Martian ice. Buried for maybe 1,000 years, it looked dead from the outside, cold and silent. But Drake felt something like a heartbeat, something alive. The inside of the ship was strange, with walls that moved slowly like they were breathing. He walked carefully, his boots echoing in the metal corridors. He passed rooms filled with broken machines and burned-out screens. His scanner beeped softly. Showing signs of energy ahead, he reached a thick silver door, sealed shut. His scanner flashed red. Unknown life form detected. Drake's heart beat faster. He wasn't supposed to open this, but he had to know. With a deep breath, he placed his hand on the scanner panel. A light scanned his palm and the door made a low hissing sound. It opened slowly, revealing a round chamber filled with a soft blue glow. In the center of the room floated a stasis pod, shaped like a crystal coffin. Inside was a girl, no a woman's leaping. Her skin was pale gold, her hair floating like silver threads. She wore nothing. And her body was covered in glowing lines. Like tattoos made of light, she looked peaceful, as if dreaming. Drake took a step closer. Suddenly her eyes opened, bright and glowing like stars. She gasped and sat up, wrapping her arms around herself. Drake froze. He raised his hands, trying not to look. I didn't mean to, he started. But the woman spoke first, her voice strange but clear. Who are you, human? Oh. Why have you entered the royal chamber? Her eyes were sharp now, filled with confusion and fear. Drake backed away a little. My name is Drake Voss. I'm an explorer from Earth. I didn't know anyone was alive here. She looked at him closely. You woke me, she said slowly. You are not allowed here, before he could answer. The room changed. Lights flashed red, and a deep voice echoed from the walls. Unauthorized entry detected? Initiating ship reboot? What's happening? Drake asked, looking around. The woman jumped out of the pod, standing tall and graceful.
Oh.
Despite her fear, she moved like a queen. The ship is waking up, she said. You've triggered the defense system. The door slammed shut behind him, locking with a heavy sound. Drake tried his coms. Nothing but static. He was trapped. The woman looked at him again, this time more curious. You? You are human, she said softly. That cannot be. Why? Drake asked. She stepped closer, her glowing tattoos pulsing slowly. Because humans destroyed my world, she said, and no human was supposed to find this ship. Drake's mind raced. He didn't know anything about an alien war. Earth's history never spoke of such a thing, but her words felt heavy, like truth buried in time. The ship's floor shifted beneath them. A hidden panel opened. A silver orb floated up and scanned. Drake's DNA match detected, the ship said. The woman's eyes went wide. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Drake looked confused. What does that mean? The ship spoke again. The marked one has arrived. Prophecy sequence initiated. Prophecy, Drake repeated. The woman turned pale. My name is Lyra, she said quietly. I am the Princess of Valter. And if this ship says you are, the marked one then. She didn't finish her sentence. Instead, a low growl filled the air, and the walls turned dark red outside the room. Heavy footsteps echoed. Metal scraping metal, something or someone was coming. Drake moved beside. Lyra, friend of yours? He asked, trying to sound calm. She shook her head. No, those are the Guardians. They will kill us both. Suddenly lights flashed again, and a hologram appeared, a map of the galaxy. One planet blinked brightly, Earth. Under it, words. An alien script translated to, War begins with the marked human. Drake stared at it. This is a mistake, he said. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Asterisk, the silence inside the room was sharp, like a blade hanging in the air. Drake stood still, unsure whether to move or speak beside him. The alien Princess Lyra watched. The glowing map, as if it were a ghost from her past. Then she spoke, not with anger, but with a strange sadness. You opened the gate, that should have stayed closed. Her voice was calm, but there was a power in it, something ancient, something royal. Drake looked at her with caution. "I didn't know, I swear," he said. "I was just exploring. I didn't even know someone was alive in here." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You are not just a man. You are the signal." Drake raised a brow, confused. "What do you mean by that?" Before she could answer, the ship began to hum, its walls pulsing with light like a beating heart. The console rose from the floor with soft mechanical clicks. Symbols danced across the screen, alien letters mixed with human language. The translation system had already adapted to Drake's mind. "Your presence has activated the memory core," Lyra said, her voice shaking slightly. "You must see what happened." She touched the console, and suddenly the room went dark. A bright light flashed hand, then they were no longer alone. Floating holograms filled the space battleships, burning cities and screaming skies. A war, long ago, between her people and Sci-Fi. Humans. Drake's heart pounded. He saw Earth's flag on one of the ships. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Earth never fought a war with aliens. We would have remembered." Lyra turned to him. "History is written by survivors, Drake, not by the fallen." She walked slowly to the pod she had awoken from and rested her hand on it. "This was my prison and my protection," she said. "They put me in stasis when the last city of Volta fell. They believed one day someone would return for me." Drake shook his head. "I'm just an explorer. I don't know anything about war or prophecy." The ship spoke again in a cold, deep voice. "Human DNA confirmed. Anomaly detected. Hybrid classification. Active hybrid." Drake repeated. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Lyra stepped back, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No, it can't be, unless—" Suddenly, the ship's lights dimmed, and a warning flashed on the screen. "Intruder proximity. Alert. Multiple life forms approaching." Drake moved toward the console. "Can we get out of here?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she whispered something in her language, and the room shifted again, revealing a staircase leading downward. "We must go," she said. "They're not coming to talk." As they moved, the hallway behind them closed like a living tunnel, metal walls reshaped to hide their path. Drake's mind spun with questions. What did the ship mean by hybrid? Why him? And why now? They reached a lower chamber, round and dark, except for a glowing orb floating in the center. Lyra placed her hand on it, and the room lit up with new holograms. This time, of her people, tall, graceful, glowing like stars, I was supposed to lead them one day, she said softly, but we lost the war before I could wear the crown. Drake stood beside her, and now. Lyra looked at him. You woke me, human, which means the prophecy has begun. Either you are the one who will unite our broken worlds, she said, or the one who will burn them both. Before Drake could respond, a loud clang echoed. From above, the intruders were inside the ship, moving fast, hunting. Lyra's eyes flashed. They're here. Drake looked at her. Do you trust me? He asked. She hesitated for only a second, then nodded. I have no choice. He smiled faintly. Good, because I have no idea what I'm doing. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook. A hatch opened without warning, and both of them dropped. Into darkness, as they fell, the ship spoke again, beginning Phase 2. Human and royal bloodline connected. Darkness swallowed them. The fall felt endless cold air rushing past. The sound of machinery all around. Then, with a sudden jolt, Drake and Lyra landed softly, caught by a strange energy field. They were in a chamber unlike the others' walls. A black crystal reflected their shapes, and soft blue mist swirled across the floor. It was quiet to quiet. Drake looked around, still catching his breath. Where are we? He asked. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her hand glowing faintly. This is the vault, she said. The oldest room of the ship, the heart of its memory. A glowing platform rose from the floor, pulsing gently. Lyra stepped onto it, motioning. For Drake to follow. When he did, the room changed. Images formed around them, moving like fog in the air. They saw planets burning, ships exploding in deep space, alien voices shouting commands. Then came a human face, Drake's face but twisted, wearing armor and holding a glowing blade. He was leading an army. Drake stepped back, shocked. What the hell is this? That's not me. Lyra's voice was quiet, but serious. It's a vision of the possible future, she said, a warning left by the ancients. Drake stared at the image of himself. I would never lead a war, he whispered. I don't. Even like guns, the image faded, replaced by a symbol half alien. Half human locked together in fire, a voice echoed through the room, calm but powerful. The one with blended blood will choose the path, peace or destruction, unity or extinction. Drake turned to Lyra. What does this prophecy really mean? Lyra looked troubled. Long ago, my people believed that one day a human with alien blood would rise. He would awaken the last royal. That's me. I'd either bring peace to the galaxy or destroy what's left of it, Drake rubbed his forehead. I'm not that guy. I didn't ask for this. The vault responded with more images, earthquakes on alien worlds, a crown falling into flames. In a strange scene, Drake and Lyra, standing before a crowd of both humans and aliens. Some were bowing, some were aiming weapons. This is why they locked me away, Lyra said softly. They feared what the prophecy would bring. Suddenly, the blue mist vanished. The vault lit up with red warning lights. External breach. Ship integrity compromised. Hostile forces inbound. Drake's eyes narrowed. They found us again. Lyra turned toward the shadows, her hand glowing brighter. We can't fight them here, she said. The vault must be protected. Drake looked around. Is there another way out? A panel slid open in the wall, revealing a spiral tunnel glowing with white light. They ran inside, and the tunnel began to close behind them. As they moved, the ship whispered to Drake again. Not out loud, but inside his mind. It showed him flashes of things he didn't understand, memories that weren't his. A battlefield, a throne, Lyra in chains, himself standing over her. He shook his head. No, that's not me, he muttered. But the voice whispered again. It can be at the end of the tunnel. They reached a narrow chamber with an old interface. Lyra pressed her palm against it, and a hidden door opened leading outside. Cold Martian wind hit their faces as they stepped onto the frozen surface. Drake looked up and froze. Above them, a black ship was descending, silent and massive. Its symbol matched one of the ones from the Volta star pierced by a blade. Lyra's face turned pale. The hunters, she said, the last ones loyal. To the old empire, Drake clenched his fists. What do they want? Lyra answered without turning. You, the wind picked up. And the ship's engines roared louder. A bright beam of light began to scan the ground where they stood. Drake looked at Lyra. We run? She nodded slowly. For now, they turned and sprinted toward the cliffs, chased by the shadow of the warship above. But as they ran, the voice inside Drake's head spoke again. You cannot run from fate, only choose how you meet it. The snow cracked under their boots as Drake and Lyra ran across the frozen Martian surface. The wind howled like a warning, and the sky above them burned with red engine lights. The black warship was descending fast, its wings wide like a predator ready to strike. Lyra's breath came in short bursts, but her focus never broke. Drake ran beside her, confused, angry, scared, but something inside him was awake now. Something old, something loud. They're locking onto us, Lyra said without looking back. If they capture me, I'll restart the war. Drake gritted his teeth. And what if they capture me? Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Then the galaxy may end before it even begins. Suddenly, the ice beneath them shook. A beam of red light crashed down just meters behind them, melting the snow into steam. Drake shouted over the roar, We need cover. Lyra pointed to a crack in the mountain wall ahead, barely visible through the fog. That tunnel leads to the old network. The resistance hid there during the last war. The word resistance echoed strangely in Drake's ears, like it belonged to him, even though he'd never heard it before. They dove inside the crack, just as another beam lit up the place they had stood. Inside, the tunnel was dark and narrow, but safe for now. Their breath echoed off the stone walls, and the sounds of the warship above grew distant, Drake leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Why are they hunting you so hard? He asked. You said you're royalty, but there has to be more. Lyra's face was tired, but her voice was strong. I'm the last living heir to the throne of Valter, she said. If I live, the empire can be rebuilt under peace. But if they kill me, they can claim it by force. With fear, Drake nodded slowly. And me? Why do they want me? Lyra hesitated. The prophecy says a human will rise, one born of two worlds, bridge between past and future. But also, a weapon? Drake frowned. A weapon? Before she could answer, a voice echoed from deeper inside the tunnel. It wasn't mechanical, and it wasn't friendly. You brought him here, princess, just like they warned. Out of the shadows stepped three figures tall, armored, not human. Their armor was marked with red scars. Symbols from Lyra's ship. One of them raised a weapon, shaped like a crystal spear. Should have let the past die, the leader growled. Drake stepped in front of Lyra without thinking. Back off, he said, voice shaking but steady. I'll have to go through me first. The alien leader smiled. We planned to, suddenly. The spear fired a pulse of energy, bright and fast. Drake raised his arm and the blast stopped mid-air. Frozen, everyone stared, including Drake. The energy floated in front of him like a ball of light. Then it vanished, sucked into his palm. Lyra gasped. You awakened, she whispered. The ship wasn't wrong? Drake looked at his hand, stunned. What did I just do? The aliens hesitated, unsure now. But before anyone could move, the ceiling shook violently. Explosions sounded above. More ships were coming, Earth ships, with Earth signals. Drake's CUM device crackled to life. This is Commander Yara of Earth Central. We have located the alien life form and the rogue agent. Secure them both. Use lethal force if needed. Drake froze. They weren't coming to rescue him. They were coming to end him. He turned to Lyra. We need a ship. She nodded slowly. There's one. Hidden deeper in the tunnels, an old rebel cruiser. Drake looked. Back at the alien soldiers, you can help us or you can try to stop us. He said, either way, we're leaving. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the leader lowered his spear. We'll guide you, he said. But if you turn into what they fear, we'll be the first to end you. Drake didn't answer because a new voice had entered his head. A Gentum, powerful, familiar. The human weapon has taken his first step. The rebel cruiser shook as it left Mars orbit. Its engines coughed like an old beast waking from sleep, but it still flew. Drake stood near the cockpit window, watching the red planet shrink into the black void. Behind him, Lyra entered the control room, wrapping a worn cloak around her shoulders. Her glowing tattoos had dimmed, but her eyes remained sharp. You still don't trust me, Drake said, not turning. Lyra replied quietly. I don't trust fate, and you smell like it. The alien pilot, an old soldier named Varric, grunted from the flight chair. You two might want to stop flirting before we reach the death zone. Drake blinked. Wait, what death zone? Varric chuckled. You're going to love this. We're heading to the Ghost Belt, a cluster of broken moons, mining wrecks, and lost stations. At the center is our hideout, the last free place in this cursed system. Drake crossed his arms. And what makes it so hidden? Varric pressed a button, and the ship vanished into a cloak of light, because no sane soul flies into a graveyard. As they entered the Ghost Belt, broken metal drifted like dead leaves in space. Crashed ships, shattered satellites, and frozen bodies spun slowly in the dark. The silence here wasn't peaceful, it was haunted. Drake stared at it all. This was a battlefield. Lyra nodded. Every piece of metal here holds a story. And most of those stories end in betrayal. Hours passed. And finally, the cruiser reached a hollow moon, cracked like an egg. Inside the crack was a city of shadows built from stolen tech, melted ships, and hope, the hidden planet. As they landed, figures moved in the shadows, weapons in hand. But when they saw Lyra, they lowered them. Some bowed, others whispered, the last heir has returned. Drake stepped down the ramp and felt eyes on him, curious, fearful, angry. To them, he was the outsider, the wild card. The human weapon walking beside their lost princess. inside the rebel base. Lyra led Drake through dark halls lined with flickering lights. Old banners from the fallen empire still hung in places, torn and faded. "This place smells like old war," Drake muttered. Lyra replied, "Because—" It never ended. They entered a circular chamber where a council of exiled leaders waited. Aliens of many races, scarred and tired, rose to their feet. Lyra spoke first. Her voice steady, "I bring news and a warning. The prophecy has awakened." All eyes turned to Drake. A heavy silence fell. One of the elders, an insectoid with glowing eyes, stepped forward. "This human has the mark," he said, "but does he have the will?" Drake opened his mouth to speak, but before he could answer, alarms rang out. Red lights flashed across the base. A young soldier ran in, Commander's Earth fleet approaching fast. No warning, no signals. "They've found us." The chamber broke. Into chaos, orders shouted, weapons grabbed, shields rising. Lyra grabbed Drake's arm. "This is too fast. Too planned. They were tracking you." Drake's face darkened. "Not me, my DNA. The ship scanned me back on Mars, sent out a signal." The elders looked at each other. "The war begins again." One whispered. Lyra turned to Drake. "You must choose now," she said. "Run or stand with us." Drake looked out the window at the approaching ships, Earth's flag painted on them, but weapons raised. He thought of his home, his people, and the truth that had been hidden for centuries. "I'm tired of running," he said. "Let's show them what a hybrid can really do." The ground shook as the first missiles struck the outer shield, and above the noise, the ship's voice whispered once more inside Drake's head, "Prepare thee." Weapon activation phase near. Asterisk smoke filled the sky of the hidden moon. The Earth fleet's attack had cracked the rebel shield, and the city below trembled with every blast. Drake stood on the rooftop of the command tower, holding a plasma rifle for the first time in his life. It felt cold in his hands. Heavy with choices he didn't want to make, he watched as rebels fought in the streets, some firing back, some falling. Screams echoed through broken speakers. It was war now, no longer a secret. Lyra arrived beside him, her face marked with ash, her cloak torn from the battle. "The main gate is gone," she said. "They'll reach the core in minutes." Drake turned to her. "Can we stop them?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the Earth ships circling above like vultures. They came prepared. This wasn't a search. It was an execution. From the sky, a voice crackled across all channels. "Drake Voss, this is Commander Yara of Earth Central Intelligence. You are ordered to surrender the alien princess and yourself immediately. You are carrying unstable genetic material that may threaten galactic safety." Drake stared at the speaker like it had spit acid. "Unstable. I didn't ask for any of this." Lyra's voice was quiet but sharp. "They fear what you are becoming." Just then, Varric ran up the stairs, injured and angry. "They broke through the lower sector," he growled. "But that's not the worst part," Drake frowned. "What could be worse?" Varric hesitated, then said, "Someone gave them our coordinates before we launched from Mars. Only 5 people had access." The silence that followed was thick. Lyra's eyes slowly turned toward Drake. Drake's chest tightened. "You think I did this?" Lyra didn't speak, but the look in her eyes hurt more than words. Drake stepped back. "You've been with me the whole time. I fought beside you. I saved your life." Varric's voice was cold. "Or you led us into a trap, just like the prophecy." Warned, Drake's fists clenched. "I didn't betray anyone." But in that moment, the memory returned, the moment the ship scanned his DNA back on Mars. The whisper in his mind? The feeling of being watched ever since. "No," Drake muttered. "It was the ship. It's been sending signals through me." I didn't know. Lyra looked at him again, this time with sadness instead of suspicion. "That ship was built by both our ancestors," she said. "It knows what you are, even if you don't." Suddenly an explosion shook the tower, throwing them all to the ground. A new voice echoed across the sky, one that made Lyra go pale. "This is Lord Reth of the Crimson Fleet. By order of the fallen empire, the princess is to be captured alive," Lyra whispered. "Reth was my father's general. He betrayed us in the final war. He's the reason I was put in stasis." Drake stood up slowly, so betrayal runs deep. In this galaxy, Reth's fleet descended from the darkness behind the Earth ships. No alliance, no warning, just another enemy hungry for control? Varek groaned. They're not here to save or protect. They're here to steal the throne, Drake. Looked at Lyra. How many people want you dead? She managed a small, bitter smile. Most of the galaxy, apparently. Drake looked toward the rebel control center. If I'm the weapon, maybe it's time to use it. Varek grabbed his shoulder. Don't be a fool. You don't even know what you are yet. Drake pulled away. I know enough to stop this madness.
Even for a moment,
He ran toward the reactor chamber beneath the base, the place where all energy flowed. Lyra followed him, shouting his name, but it was too late. Inside the chamber, the ship's core projection appeared again, its voice deep and calm. Final stage authorization accepted. Bloodline match confirmed. Beginning integration, Drake reached for the core, his hands glowing now. Symbols ran across his arms, alien and human. His eyes burned with new light, and in his mind, he heard 1,000 voices. Past kings, forgotten warriors, old enemies, and lost friends' memories that weren't his. Behind him, Lyra entered the room, her eyes full of fire and fear. Drake. Stop. If you lose yourself to that core, we may lose you forever. Drake looked back at her, tears in his eyes. But if I don't, we all die tonight. He touched the core, and the room exploded in light. The walls shook, alarms screamed, and ships above began to fall from the sky, and as everything faded into white, a final voice echoed across the galaxy. The weapon has chosen. Light filled everything, not bright, not blinding, but infinite. It was like falling into a sea made of stars. Drake was no longer in his body. He floated in memory, in energy, in history itself. Voices swirled around him. Some called him savior. Others called him destroyer. He saw wars fought before he was born. He saw Lyra as a child, hiding in her palace while the empire burned. He saw Earth clean and knew long, before it knew about space. And then he saw himself, not as he was, but as what he could become, a leader, a weapon, a bridge between two dying worlds. When Drake opened his eyes again, he wasn't the same. He stood in the middle of the rebel base, glowing softly. The core had gone silent, and the air around him hummed with power. Lyra stood nearby, her eyes wide not with fear, but awe. You're not fully human anymore, she whispered. Drake looked down at his hands. Alien markings covered his skin. His blood felt like light. I'm not sure what I am, he said, but I know what I need to do. Outside, the battle had frozen. Earthships hovered, Crimson Fleet warcraft paused. Everyone felt the shift. The pulse from the core had reached them all. Weapons stopped firing. Voices went quiet. Drake stepped outside the base alone. No armor, no guns, just truth in his voice. He spoke, and his words echoed into every ship. Every soldier, every mind, you were all lied to, he said. The war you've been fighting is older than you. It was built on fear, on blood, on secrets. But now you have a choice. Lyra stepped beside him, standing tall, royal once more. My people are not your enemies, she said. We were survivors, just like you, and now. We offer peace not because we are weak, but because we are tired of watching galaxies burn. The silence that followed was long. Then, from the Earth fleet, a reply commander Yara appeared on the view screen. Her face tense. How can we trust a human who's not fully human? She asked, how do we know this isn't another trap? Drake smiled faintly. Because I'm standing here, unarmed. And you still haven't pulled the trigger? Yara stared, then slowly gave the order.
Stand down all units one by one. The ships
Retreated, engines powering down. The Crimson Fleet vanished into the black. The galaxy took a breath for the first time in centuries. Later, in the rebuilt halls of the rebel city, a meeting was held. Humans, aliens, old enemies now talking like future allies. Drake didn't sit at the head of the table. He stood beside Lyra, his place not as king, not as conqueror, but as a bridge. When the day ended, Lyra found him staring at the stars. You changed everything, she said. You were the weapon, but you chose to be more. Drake nodded slowly. Turns out the galaxy didn't need fire, he said. It needed a mirror. She stepped closer. And what will you be now? He looked up at the stars. A story, he said with a soft grin. A tale to remind them that even in darkness, something new can rise, as the stars watched in silence. The legend of the human weapon spread, not as a curse, not as a threat, but as the one who chose peace over power. The galaxy remembered him not for the wars he could have started, but for the one he ended before it began.